Hello gang, welcome to the Wedding and Events Business Broadcast with me, Ross Thurston. Now this is our first one on the podcast, so please give us a like, please subscribe to the channel. And today we are joined with a good friend of mine who I've known for many years, Jeremy Durrant. He had an events company, but now has gone in a little bit of a different direction. So strap in and let's get started with our first podcast today. So, hello, Jeremy Durrant. How are you?
I'm just strapping in, like you said I needed to.
Strapping in, yeah.
So I'm
Welcome
honoured.
to the studio.
I'm honoured. First of all, can I say thank you very much for inviting me to be on your first podcast.
No, thank you. How do you
And congratulations on launching it, and obviously all your success thus far with RCT events. But before we go any further, I just want to say that I walked in here and I thought, with this lovely white desk and these lovely leather chairs, I thought I was about to get fired by Alan Sugar.
You're fired.
You're
The
fired.
Apprentice.
But then I saw the Love Hearts, which is all very romantic, so I wasn't sure whether I was going to be proposed to or fired.
Well, I haven't got the candle. I forgot to put the candle in the middle. But I'm glad you like the set, which we've set the scene today.
The decor, yes, it's lovely.
So you're on our first podcast. So let's tell everyone, or if you could just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you started and what you sort of progressed into, if that's okay.
Well, I've always been interested in entertaining and music and DJing since I was like 2-3 years old, as long and as far back as I can remember, where I used to do little radio shows with my brother up in the spare room with a big long cable and a speaker down to the kitchen when Mum was cooking tea, and I was sort of always loving that kind of stuff. And then I think I must have got to about 14, 15, and I thought, I'd seen a mobile disco. I think it was my dad's birthday or something. And it was the first mobile disco I'd ever seen. And I remember standing there just, mouth open wide, just couldn't believe the excitement of seeing someone there, playing music, flashing lights and the adrenaline. I just felt that sort of spark.
Straight away, yeah.
I want to be there. And it was right back in the day when they just had like a few flashing bulbs and a couple of boards, kind of box lights at the front.
Oh, they were huge those days, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And then the guy was queuing up all the songs on a telephone.
Oh, the telephone. I never understood that.
What was that all about? I was like, is he calling his mum or what's he doing? But yeah, so I saw the guy there. Obviously, in those days, the speakers were probably about as high as this ceiling. Everything was so chunky and clunky, and you had to have pretty much a massive van or a lorry to get all your equipment.
It used to probably take you all day to set up some of those,
exactly.
wasn't it?
It was very bulky, and looking back on it, it was very basic. But then it was just so exciting, and from that moment, I knew that I wanted to do it.
Okay, so when you knew that you wanted to do it, how did you move into that? Was it the help of Dad, all of us?
It was the bank of Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
I mean, to start off with, I think I picked up some little decks, some little vinyl decks with a little mixer all built into a board. It was really cheap looking back on it, but I think we picked it up from like a jumble sale or something.
Right.
And I didn't have any records. I was only very young, so I went up in the loft and got all Dad's old vinyls out from the 60s and 70s and messed around with those. And then there was a friend's party coming up, and somehow I managed to talk my way into doing the disco for this family party. And it bombed. I had this equipment here. All the records were so old and dusty; they would jump in, and I was getting embarrassed. So I was throwing them on the. Oh, it was.
Did you have a telephone? The old telephone.
Oh no, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to queue up a record.
Just press the button.
I just hope for the best. So that was the first time. It was. I didn't enjoy it at all, and it was quite a while before I plucked up the courage to give it another go. Then a few years later, with the help from Dad, we went out. We bought some equipment. I remember going down the old A dozen to Ipswich, going to a DJ shop there, and I couldn't believe the technology from these box lights and these things that I'd seen at the first disco. Suddenly there was all these state-of-the-art lights and lasers and
smoke machines,
and I was just so excited. So we bought some stuff, and I started doing a little disco. Started to do little discos for the local pubs and things like that.
How much do you reckon you were charging in those days?
Initially, I think
50 quid.
I think I was paying them initially. No, it wasn't. It was about 50. I think my first disco was. I think it was 60 quid. It was the Maybush in Great Oakley.
So was that a lot of money in those days?
Obviously, it was a lot more than 60 quid is now, but it wasn't an absolute fortune. And I remember doing it. I went out as pro disco.
Pro disco. I think my first one was Nick Ross discos, and that was courtesy of my dad.
Do you remember back in the day though? It was all Starstream Roadshow, Moonbeam Disco, and it was all that kind of stuff. They all had kind of really cheesy names back then, didn't they?
Oh, blimey, God, those were the days, weren't they?
Were.
So you kind of progressed a little bit further down the line. You dipped your toe in, to become doing it professionally, didn't you? Later on in life.
I was doing the discos, and also I was starting to do a little bit of radio because it was kind of they've always gone sort of hand in hand for me. And I started volunteering at a local radio station which doesn't exist anymore. It turned into Dream 100 a few years later, and that doesn't exist anymore either. But it was called Mellow 1557 in Frinton-on-Sea. I used to go along there, and I helped. Back then, it was like with the discos. Everyone on the radio it wasn't even CDs at that point. Everyone was playing vinyl. So you'd go into the record library before the show and you'd pick all your records out and put them in a box.
Blimey.
So my job used to be at the end for the presenters to put all their records away in alphabetical order for them.
Did you ever have to dust them?
Yeah.
I think
give them a little dust. Yeah. And you used to wind them back half a turn, and then let it go.
Hope for the best.
Yeah, so I used to do that, and I started doing some little shows at the weekend. So I was doing that and the discos at that time. But I was just a one-man band, and I was just making a little bit of pocket money. But I was making more than my friends were at that time. So I was chuffed. I was doing what I enjoyed, playing music.
And then you finally sort of got to the point where you'd done it as a full-time job,
I've
professional with radio and nightclubs as well, wasn't it?
I think I've been really lucky because I've never had a proper job. I mean, I think my parents have always been hoping that I would. I remember Mum saying many a time, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And luckily, I've never ever managed to.
Have to do a 9 to 5.
Have to do a 9 to 5 job. I've always managed to, luckily,
do what you love
by the skin of my managed to do what I love and do a mixture of radio and DJing and presenting and comparing, and I've made some kind of living out of it over the years.
Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. So we met at Escape nightclub, which was when you were in the nightclub scene.
You were
then.
a wee little lad of 18 when I
was
first
very
met
young.
you. It was Escape, the nightclub that used to be King's nightclub over in Copford.
And I'll be honest with you, I when I started doing just as a light jockey in
Yes,
Escape,
you were doing my lights. Weren't
I was
you?
doing your lights, yeah. But I was like a kid in a toy shop. I was like, wow, I mean, because it was full spec in that nightclub, wasn't it?
It was,
Had
do you remember in that nightclub they had that thing where it put a jet of air?
a jet of air up.
I mean, it was just times have changed. You would not get away with it now. But they used to wait till a girl walked past and press this little button and it shot a jet of air up her.
While she had a skirt on.
It was like the old Marilyn Monroe classic scene, But I mean, imagine trying to do that in a nightclub now.
You wouldn't get away with that now.
You would not get away with that. Different times.
So I just want to bring in as well, because we met obviously at the nightclub, and we become friends, and we started working. And I learned quite a lot from you. But am I right in saying before that you'd also like owned a B&B and had a nightclub abroad, didn't you?
You know what? I've
You've done a bit of everything, haven't you?
A bit of Del Boy.
Del Boy, yeah,
a bit of wheeling.
Bit of a risk taker.
Monge too. I've had a villa in Turkey. I've had a 9-bedroom house, a bed and breakfast in the Limousin in
You
France.
rented a B&B. Come on.
It didn't. We did it for a little while, me and my partner at the time, and we got so bored.
Yeah.
We went from one extreme to the other. We sold this B&B in this little tiny village in the middle of nowhere, where the average age of the people living in the village were probably like 60. So we went from that to going out to Mallorca and buying a bar which I called Vibe Bar on a little resort called Calador.
Yep.
It was called Vibe Bar. It was kind of it was ahead of the time. Then it was something kind of different.
But I bet you learnt your trade doing the nightclubs abroad.
Yeah, exactly, and it was tough. And when you work abroad, and I've done a lot of working abroad, like I know you have as well, and you really do learn your trade abroad, because you've got people not only of all different ages, you've got all different nationalities, and you're doing a lot of long hours as well. You're doing sometimes most nightclubs, they want their pound of flesh abroad. You're doing 6 nights a week, and you're doing long old sets as well. And you've got there's no resting on your laurels. You don't fill that club, you're gone.
Yeah,
and you're back on a plane.
There's no contract.
You're back on EasyJet.
But I mean, I sit here now and think, how the hell did I do that 6 nights a week?
Could
you do it now?
We were a lot younger.
Yeah, I couldn't do it now.
you're a lot younger.
A few more grey hairs.
But you learn your trade and you're there. People think, oh, you're going out there for your jollies. And some people do. But if you're DJing 6 nights a week, the pressure's on to keep those customers. They've got so many choices of venues to go to. And you've really got to work. And that's when I think, that's when I learned my trade of being like a personality DJ.
Yep.
It's not just like... that was, this is, or not. Or there's a lot of DJs out there that, they practice mixing in their bedrooms, but they won't talk on the mic.
They're petrified.
And they also won't deviate from the songs that they know, because they know that song mixes really well into that song, and they might beat match it perfectly, but they might have lost the dance floor
because they're not reading the crowd.
They're in their little world, and they've got their little set that they've practiced in their bedroom.
And the songs they like.
Exactly. And you're not there to play your favourite songs. It doesn't matter whether you're doing Pasha in Ibiza or whether you're doing the Walter on the Naze social club. It doesn't matter. You're not there to play songs for yourself. You are there for the customer.
And to keep them on the dance floor.
Mavis on her anniversary or Joanne on her 18th or whatever it is. You are there for the paying customer to make sure they and their guests have a good night. You might be playing a song that you absolutely hate. It doesn't matter. You are doing your job. I mean, I've had DJs say to me when I've asked, I'm not playing that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Don't get so sort of caught up on it. If the crowd are having a good time and they're dancing, you've done your job.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, just a quick example. I done a wedding last year, and the groom was very specific and said, I'd like you to play old school rave music from the 90s. Now, we're talking stuff like Born Slippy, all the big old Prodigy songs. And I thought, okay, no worries. He said, that's all I want you to play. Anyway, I rock up, and what do you reckon maybe 70% of the customers, what sort of age range do you reckon they were?
I reckon they're probably 50, 60, 70. I reckon you were playing all this, by the way, stuff that I personally like.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that you were getting people coming up asking for ABBA. And,
exactly that, yeah. 70% were over the age of 60, 70.
And they were like, what are you? And it makes you look unprofessional because they're thinking, well, hang on a second. You're not playing what we want. But what you're actually doing, it's a very difficult situation because you're playing the music for the paying client.
Customer. That's exactly how I felt
customer,
about it.
Do you know what? The customer is always right. But sometimes they're wrong.
If
that makes sense, yeah. I mean, you and I have both done it. We've DJ'd and we've played a Pacific. It's when they write a Pacific playlist, and you follow it, and you know it's wrong.
You look at it,
and most brides and grooms or whoever you're doing party to, you explain to them that, we'll get as many of these on as we can, but we've got to play.
We'll fit them in at the right time.
It's not only the songs that you play; it's the time that you play them, and we'll try and get as many of these on. And most people go, "Yeah, you're the professional. Leave it to you." But you get some people that like, "Nope, these are all of our favourite songs." I mean, one thing you should never do. Again, though, if a client wants to do it, it's up to them. I always think it's a really bad thing when you say to your guests, "Ask all your guests to pick a song."
Oh, I've had that recently, and they put Titanic on there, all the slowies
most
or something.
Most people, they'll pick the song that they had as the first dance at their wedding,
and a slowie.
You end up with all these ballads and songs, and it's like, and then if they've been told to pick a song, they expect you to play that song, and you're like, how on earth do I get Inkelbert Humperdinck in here?
Oh dear. So I just want to sort of move on now. So we met at the nightclub, and that was the time when I'd spent about 5 years, I think, out in Spain, and I came back because of relationship issues. I thought, my time's up in Spain. I'm coming back to the England.
If I remember, you went to and from
quite a few times.
Spain a few times, didn't you, with your tail between your legs?
In my young days, yeah. But again, I did learn my trade there very much. So.
And you learnt your lessons, and you learned how to be professional, and you learnt your trade of a DJ.
And then my good old mate Jeremy was in Colchester at the time, and you just started up on your own as a disco company.
That's when we started to kind of extend a little bit, because I was doing a lot of radio. I thought, well, I'm going to go out as my name, so I just went out
personal brand,
JeremyDurrant.com at the time. But then I was starting to get double bookings, triple bookings, and I wanted someone that could do those events because I didn't want to turn them away, and I needed someone who could do, what I knew the client wanted and not sort of ruin my reputation and make sure everyone was 100% satisfied. And I knew, because we'd worked together a lot, that you and you'd worked abroad, that you knew how to do the mic work. And the mic work is so important. And a lot of people are going to say, hang on, no, you're booked to be a DJ. You're not there to talk. And that's true. You're not there to talk.
But for the kind of
records.
clients and the events you had,
but it's about knowing when to talk and when not to talk. And I would say earlier in an evening, you might be hyping people up. You might be doing a few requests. And if you're doing a wedding, you've got some important stuff to do.
Announcing the buffet.
The buffet is always the important bit. And obviously the first dance and all the rest of it. There's certain things that you need. Last time at the bar.
Time at the bar.
And there's always certain things that you have to announce, basics. And I think, you need to have those skills if you're an entertainer.
So we joined forces, and I come to work for you, didn't I?
So we started off doing discos, and it was going really well, and we got a few more, and then we started. We dabbled in. I seem to remember we dabbled in photo booths, didn't we?
Yeah, but do you remember? I mean, this is going back how many years now?
10
years? 10 years?
Oh, more than that.
More than that. Long time
15,
ago. And at the time you just had the one setup, but then do you remember we brought in what I still call the big rig?
Well, we started to do packages,
the
didn't
packages,
we?
yeah.
So we had the basic one. I don't know if it was the gold, silver. I can't remember.
Something like that.
I know that the bigger one, we called it the mobile nightclub.
Mobile nightclub, yeah.
And it was like gantry,
massive moving
lights,
heads,
and obviously I've been out of the mobile side of things a little while, but. From what I gather from you and from what I've seen, it's gone full circle, hasn't it?
Completely,
it's gone from having all these massive
rigs,
and it's now it's minimalist now, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But it looks very professional, and obviously a lot of things are all white now.
It's got to look sleek, isn't it?
White was only coming into play when we were at the end of
that was something we offered. We offered the all white package, didn't we?
And it sold very well, didn't it? So that's become massive now.
It did. I think you want something that's not going to, bride and grooms especially. They spend a lot of money on the flowers, the decor. They don't want some monstrosity
intrusive,
of a DJ booth in there with cables and wires sticking all out of it. They want something that's going to blend in with the decor, and I think that's what it's all about now, isn't it?
Yeah. So it grew quite quickly, didn't it? The business. We managed to source all these different clients, contracts, all sorts of.
It did.
Events,
and
didn't
then
we?
there was this fellow I know quite well called Ross Thurston. He said, "Oh, hang on a second, we could go on a bit of a bit of a
diverse."
Because we started to get a few sort of requests to do slightly bigger things. Like I think we started off doing in my dad's village in Rabness over in near Harwich.
The festival.
We were asked to do their festival. They did something called Rabstock, didn't they?
And let's be honest. Our first one we did bite off a little bit too much, didn't we?
We had the massive lorry, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which we set it all up on, and we've always talked the talk. And back in the day, we couldn't always walk the walk. But having said that,
we always delivered.
Yeah. We might have had a slightly squeaky bum times, but we always managed to make it happen. But we've learned. I think you need to learn that you have to do things in stages. I think we ran a little bit before we could walk.
Yeah, certainly did. I mean, when you launched, obviously it was jeremydurrant.com, and then we went and launched Mainstage UK.
Yes,
wasn't
which was more like that was sort of staging, wasn't it? A sort of bigger events.
Event production, really, wasn't it? Sound lighting,
and everything. And I did a lot of the comparing on the stage, and we started to do a lot of that stuff.
And we had some really good clients.
We had a few famous ones, didn't we?
We did, but So what did you find when we went into more the production side with Mainstage? Obviously, it included the outdoor stages, the generators, the sound, the lighting, and when you go to big boys stuff, you can't go cheap, really, can you?
No. Well, this is the problem. You're more, and you always have been. You've been more technical, and you know when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know more about the equipment and the wiring up and the tech side of it. With me, I prefer to be up on stage,
in the limelight.
So, and you used to say we used to get these calls, didn't we? Can you do this event? And you'd put them on hold. You'd say, right, they want this event. I go, brilliant. What is it? Oh, it sounds great. And you'd go, yeah, but we haven't got all the kit yet. I go, no, we'll
don't worry about it.
We'll get it. And we always did.
Yeah.
But it was very, very scary. And it started to get to the stage where with staff and equipment, we were the victim of our own success, weren't we?
Yeah.
Things were just, we had so much coming in, we just couldn't, we didn't have the infrastructure.
I mean, how did you fund a lot of it? Was it from cash flow? Was it?
I managed to get loans. credit cards.
So it was
all
big
kinds of-
risk, really, wasn't it?
It was. I remember getting some finance on some equipment because we started to get, we moved to several different premises and we went from literally having everything in my garage to suddenly having a massive warehouse with a forklift and
Loads of lorries.
with tail lifts and it suddenly got really big, didn't it?
Oh, we did. I mean, I sit back now and think, that was quite a proud moment for both, for what we built
I remember
up.
standing back on some events and just sort of standing there in the middle of the field, looking over at the stage and thinking, "Wow, we've done this."
Yeah, but it did. I think with
Shed
everyone,
little man teeth.
everyone who works in events, weddings, most, especially festivals, of that, it's long hours. You do sacrifice time from your family and your girlfriends, your wives.
Do you know what? Anyone who thinks that we do this game for money, do you know what? We really don't. You've got to have a passion to get yourself out of bed, especially for events. To get yourself out of bed sometimes at 3 a.m, sometimes not even having any sleep.
Yeah.
Rocking up sometimes in the middle of a field in the pouring rain, in the cold.
We've done that many a time, didn't we?
Strapping a stage together.
Yeah.
It's not my world, but we did it, didn't we?
We did it. We did have some fun, but we did spend a lot of time away from home,
in the back
didn't
of a
we?
van and everything, and but that's what happened, isn't it? We got bigger and bigger, and I started to get more and more stressed, and it just wasn't good for the health, and it wasn't good for the bank balance.
No. So what do you think makes a great event or wedding business? What do you think sort of makes a good one?
I think it's an understanding of the client, the market, and it's experience. And I think you've got to be able to listen. It's so important that you listen to what the customer wants, and then you tell them what you can provide. Give them some advice if they want it, and it's about working together. It's not just about rocking up on the day. You've got to really, with weddings especially, you need to know your bride and groom. You need to know what makes them tick. You need to know how they met. You need to know, what they're all about and what they need, because that day is going to be remembered forever. If you do a great day, they'll always remember their wedding day.
No, I mean we used to to get work in. It's probably changed quite a lot, but I remember when I started with yourself just for the discos, you used to spend a fortune on Google AdWords, didn't you?
We did a lot of that,
50 quid a day or something.
We got a lot of work in, and we took a lot of sort of cold sort of bookings. I always think the best ones to get are the word of mouth ones,
you ended up
because
getting a lot of them.
people know what they're getting, and they know they've got that peace of mind. I always say, and I never used to understand when we used to get a phone call sometimes, and don't get me wrong, we're all grateful for it, but the phone would ring and someone would say, "Well, I want to book you. I've got a wedding. How much is it going to cost?" And they'd book you. And I always say, don't. Maybe for a party, but if it's your wedding, if it's something that important, I always say, if at all possible, you need to meet your DJ.
Or at least chat on the phone.
At least chat on the phone, because
yeah.
you'll get an immediate kind of feeling for whether they're going to be right for you.
I like this person.
Just by the way that they communicate and chat with you on the phone. If they can't string a sentence together, they're probably not going to deliver for you on the day.
No, I agree. I mean, I still get clients to this day who just book me on email, and I know we kind of they probably look at our website, look at our social media, and going, "Oh, these are good." But
Exactly.
if it was me personally, I'd definitely pick up the phone.
No, so that's something that I would say, if you're watching this now and you're getting married soon and you want to have a really good bit of entertainment, and let's be honest, it is such an important part of the day. It's not the most important, but the most important part is obviously being with your family, is the vows or whatever kind of wedding you choose to have. That's the most important bit. But it's one of the smallest time-wise parts of the day.
Yeah.
The most important part of the day, so the longest part of the day is the entertainment in the evening, and it is so important, and it always makes me chuckle when someone picks up the phone and they'll say, "Hello, is that RCT Events? Yeah, what's the cheapest you can do? What's your best price?" And it's always like, if that's what you're doing, all well and good, but I hope you don't mind me saying this. I think if someone wants the cheapest disco going or the cheapest wedding DJ going, don't come to RCT Events.
No.
You're not stupidly expensive.
No, we are not the most expensive.
But you're not the budget cheap.
No.
And I just, it bemuses me every single time. things are expensive. A cake's expensive. The catering's expensive. Everything's expensive.
The dress.
But you'll never walk into a wedding shop, would you? And go, hello, well, I'm here for my wedding dress. What's the cheapest one you got here? that'll do me. That one over there, what's that? I'll have it. Is it cheap? Well, I'll have it.
That old frock.
You know, because why would you not do it? Because, yeah, you're saving money, but it's probably not going to fit well. It's probably not going to look right. It's probably going to fall to bits. Well, that's pretty much the same as if you book a cheap DJ. You might be lucky, and they do.
You might be.
But the chances are, if they're charging a small amount, they're probably doing it just as a hobby, which, again, nothing wrong with doing it as a sideline. But if they're doing it as a sideline, it's probably not going to mean quite as much to them as someone who's doing it because it's their livelihood and it's their passion.
I mean, this is the thing. And you know, there is someone who might be, you know, whatever job they do during the week, a plumber, an electrician, they might think, oh, do you know what? I could earn myself
nothing wrong with that.
300 quid at the weekend.
I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. And I'm not saying there aren't some great DJs out there that do it just as a hobby. No. But you've just got to be so wary when booking your entertainment for a wedding. Please don't do it on price alone.
Well, I was reading...
Look at everything. Look at the reviews. Speak to the person.
I was reading the other day, I actually had a survey come through from Bridebook, and they do a survey every year with brides and grooms, and they said that the average person, or average couple, spend £1,000 on their entertainment, so that could possibly mean, you know, DJ or band. But, you know, I think maybe that's around the average price in this area, I mean, around here.
Most people understand, I think, but there's some people that just think, you know what? Oh, they're only playing music.
Drag and drop.
I mean, my partner does the same thing. She says, "You're going to get in your DJ booth and drag and drop." You know, I mean, we can. You know, both of us. You know, we're not technically the most advanced mixing geniuses, but we can mix. But that's not that's not the most important thing.
It's all about the personality,
DJ,
isn't it?
It's about the personality, and it's about knowing what to play, and at what volume to play it, and at what time. That's also very important.
Yep.
And knowing what song to play and when to play it. You can play the best song of the night, but you can play it at the wrong time and not one person dancing.
It flops.
So no one wants it to flop, do they?
So do you prefer weddings or would you prefer event production? Now, bearing in mind that the weddings, that client is only really going to use you once in their lifetime because maybe a lot of people only get married once.
But it's also word of mouth, though, isn't it? Probably, if someone's getting married, they've probably got friends, they've probably got family
potentially
that
yes.
could be following in their footsteps.
So, and then you've got the event production side, so sound, lighting, staging, conferencing for festivals, or whatever it may be. That client might use you a few more times, so it's going to bring in you a lot more revenue. But what is your favourite out of those two? Whether you're thinking about money or just enjoyment.
I'm not thinking about the money. I'm thinking about more what I personally enjoy. I like to see a smile on my customers' faces. I need to know that they've had a good time and I've had that rapport and that connection with them and I've helped make their day that little bit special. So you think
weddings.
So the technical sort of side of it, putting stages together, wiring up lights, I personally don't get any buzz at all from that. And I don't miss that side of it at all because obviously we're going to talk about the fact, I think, aren't we, that I don't do that anymore.
Yes, we'll come on to that very shortly.
But I do DJ and I think I always will DJ because it's just in my blood. It's just something that I still, you know. I remember the first time I ever walked into a nightclub. It was pretty similar to the first time when I saw someone doing mobile disco. You just it sends a shiver down your spine.
I totally agree.
It's electric, and you're like, I want to do that.
I want to do that full time.
Back in the day, one of the first nightclubs I ever went into was the Hippodrome in Colchester, and I remember walking
sticky floor.
I remember being so scared. Me and my mate walked up and down the high street for ages, trying to pluck up the courage to go in, even though we had ID, everything, but just you saw the big burly, they were called doormen then. Bouncers. Doormen now, isn't it? Or door staff. It was bouncers. And they were standing there. We were so intimidated. I remember when we eventually managed to do it and we walked down the steps and suddenly everyone's dancing. The lights are on, the music. It's just like,
that was a huge club as well.
This is as good as it gets.
So did you ever play in a Hippodrome?
Yes, I've done a couple there now.
Did you feel like you made it when you got there?
I did. Yeah. When you do that, it's something I
hands in the air.
Always wanted to do it, but only I don't know how much you're going to go into that in this conversation. But obviously, the world has changed a lot, hasn't it, in the last few years? Which is one of the reasons that I got out of
the events and something. Yeah,
together because obviously, I don't know if you want me to speak about that now, but obviously, I moved out of the decided that I didn't want to do the events anymore, didn't I?
Yeah. So I'll just ask you a couple more questions, and we'll come on to that. So when when you got to the point on sort of Jeremy Durrant to transitioning to main stage, what did you find the hardest part was for scaling the business? Because obviously you were going from a disco company with photo booths to event production, which was a different kettle of fish. What did you find the hardest? Did you just want to stay a mediocre business, or did you want massive? We're going for this.
I think it's difficult. You either stay at a certain level where you manage it and you do every event yourself, and it's got that personal touch, or you grow but you've got to have that infrastructure. And the main issues we had. It was the cash flow to get the equipment. You're constantly needing to repair and improve and extend your range of equipment and products that you offer. And also, it's getting the staff. When you're doing a big event, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that you need.
Long days, weren't they?
And it's long days as well. It's not great for your health, and I think, as you touched on earlier, it's not great for relationships either.
No.
And in hindsight, I never like to regret anything, but I probably maybe should have stayed with the DJ. So the stuff that I felt passionate about. You know, we went into ground when we started doing the event production that I wasn't so familiar with.
Yeah,
and it was so I didn't feel so secure in it.
You did enjoy it, did you? Picking up the big speakers and the stages.
I remember I'd be sitting in the car on a cold day on my phone, and you'd be get out here, give me a hand. You know, it wasn't my thing, was it?
If you had to, what would be the worst part of running an events business and the best part?
The best part is having a customer who comes up to you at the end of the night and shakes your hand or gives you a hug or sends you an amazing email saying, you know what, you got it spot on. You made our night. You made our day. That's the best thing.
What would you say is the worst?
It's the stress of getting to that point to make sure everything comes together, so that you don't let that customer down. And luckily, we've hardly ever done that. But that's the problem. When you do get bigger, you can lose grasp.
What do you do?
You can lose grasp, but you can't control what everyone's doing when you're not there. I mean, and that used to be very scary. Not knowing. I remember doing a wedding, and I was about to do the first dance, and I'd have phone calls from other events which are equally as important from either the client or the DJ or whoever, wanting to get some help or technical issues were the biggest thing, which sometimes happens with photo booths and anything technical. Sometimes.
The risk is high, isn't it?
Through no fault of anyone, sometimes a printer, and we all know it at home, sometimes you'll try and turn your computer on and the computer says no. You know,
and you just give up.
Printer, I've connected my printer. Why are you not printing? You're connected with, and sometimes with all technologies, something's going to go wrong occasionally, and so you've also got to have backup equipment, which is expensive. So you can't just have one printer in case that printer packs up.
Regularly serviced, all of that.
And then you can't just have one person ready to run it in case they ring in sick, and it's just the bigger you get. So I think that's the hardest bit. It's the stress.
I think I can relate to that. I mean, with my business, I mean, what we're into our third year, but the first year we done. So all I done was start off with the disco rig, and then it grew so quickly. I then outgrew my dad's garage. Then we got sort of a massive shed in the middle of a farm, which just did not work for us at all. And we ended up here, which is obviously a massive outlay when you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this every month? But you just have to sometimes go with it, don't you?
And my only advice, and I'm not going to, like your dad would say, I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs, but there's nothing wrong with growing, which you are, but just never do what I did, which was go
run 1 million miles an hour. Yeah.
Walk, don't run.
Go with it.
Don't ever go backwards.
With the pace.
Stay in the same place, go forward, just don't gallop forward.
So it kind of leads me on to you basically sold your house, didn't you? And then I sold the business
and the house almost pretty much at the same time. I thought, you know what? I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm not loving it anymore. It's not good for my health anymore. So I decided I sold the business to a good friend of mine, David, and his events company.
And he was quite a bit bigger scale.
Exactly.
He could cope with it, couldn't he? Really?
He took on some of our bigger clients, discarded some to other companies that weren't right for him, and so we did that. And at the same time, I then decided, I wanted to do something that I'd never done before in this country. And that was,
but it was still quite relatable to what you knew, wasn't it?
Like I said, I've always been in entertainment. I've always been a DJ. I've always been a radio presenter. I've always been involved in music and entertaining. And I thought, well, do you know what? It was at that time when there was kind of a gap in the market for going out. If you were that little bit at the weekends, if you were that little bit older, when I say older, I don't mean old, I just mean in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, that a lot of people, a lot of friends and people that we knew were saying, well, there's nowhere to go out. You know, back in the day, there was the Chicagos, there was the Branigans and all those kind of party bars. There wasn't anything about. So I thought, you know what? Knowing what I knew from doing a lot of parties and a lot of discos, a lot of weddings, the music that always gets everyone up was like the classic 80s stuff. And you probably still
to
find
this
it now.
day. Yeah.
You have a certain, I'm sure you have the same thing you have at your box of evergreens. It's songs that you know.
The floor fillers.
You put Whitney Houston on and I want to dance with somebody and no one gets up, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you are. Or Robin S. Show Me Love. I mean, that's well overplayed,
if someone
but
looks
it
at you,
always feels
if someone
the floor.
looks at you and it's like, what you're playing, you're in trouble. But so I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I go for a retro bar, something that will appeal to younger people, because a lot of people love the 80s music, even if they weren't alive in those
this
times.
was pre-COVID, wasn't it? This was before
like
COVID.
About 9 months before COVID. So I managed to find a venue in Crouch Street in Colchester. We had all kinds of ideas of what to call it. I think we were going to call it the retro bar and all kinds of things.
Well, I actually jumped ship with you as well, didn't I? Because you sold the company.
As I sold it, you decided to come with me. So I took you on. Obviously, the plan was to take you on as the manager with your respective partner or wife at the time. Still wife.
Still is.
Sounded like I couldn't remember if you were married at that point. But you were, weren't you? So she came along as well. And so we opened a bar which I ended up calling Rubik's, after the Rubik's Cube from the 80s.
Massive brand.
It was pretty much an 80s bar with a bit of 90s chucked in as well. And so I sold my house. I did take a big risk. I sold my house, sold my business, put everything into this place.
Literally every penny you had, yeah?
And thank God it paid off, and people were coming out of the woodwork that hadn't been out in ages, and we had queues. It was 1 in, 1 out. I mean, I don't know how well you know Colchester. I mean, you know Colchester very well, but it's we used to go down Crouch Street up to Head Street, 1 in, 1 out. It was just like, wow.
And the money, I remembered that what you were taking was unbelievable.
Like I said, it was nothing. It wasn't to do with the money, but obviously the money is always nice.
Of course, yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. The buzz we used to get every weekend, and I was just like, wow, this was such a good decision.
So you didn't regret selling the events company and going to
not until 8 months later, when something happened.
Oh, when the
8 months
lockdown
later,
from Boris comes.
Boris Johnson comes on the telly. We knew obviously COVID had been talked about, but we thought, well, it's not gonna affect nothing. It's not sort of scaremongering. It's not really going to affect anything. And I remember having one of the busiest nights we'd had in a long time on the Saturday night. And then it was a couple of days later, Boris Johnson comes onto the TV. And I think I was around your house having a cup of tea.
I think you were, yeah.
He was going to do this announcement. And he said, all clubs, all hospitality venues need to close for midnight tonight. And I just remember my heart,
I think it went white. White as a sheet.
I think I did. And we knew that we were in trouble.
But do you remember, I remember you saying to me, should we just do one last night?
But that was the thing. I think they said everything had to close at midnight. So most of us decided, well, they were going to open and have one last final sort of swan song. But we felt that we didn't feel right doing that, because it was like we were going to try and... They'd obviously decided that it wasn't safe to be going out. So why should we be inviting our customers to come out?
It was almost a bit disrespectful, wasn't it?
Getting ill by coming out to our venue. So we didn't do it. We closed down, and I can't remember how long we were initially locked down for, but I know over 2 years we were hardly open at all.
But you're still standing now, which is good, isn't it?
Well, exactly. I mean, I thought it was all going to, I got myself, maxed out on all credit cards, and luckily we had the bounce back loan, which was a saviour, and some various sort of business sort of help from the government at the time, which got us through, and we were sort of super excited to come out the other end, thinking everyone's going to go bananas. They've all been locked
down, want to have a dance, have a drink.
But it didn't happen that way. People kind of trickled out, because the world had changed in those 2 years, where people had got used to being at home. They'd built bars in their gardens,
buying crates of beer from
people used to get
supermarket,
cheap drinks from Tesco's or whatever. And then suddenly it was like, well, hang on, we got to go out and get a taxi, get a babysitter, pay to go in a nightclub, pay obviously a premium because you're in a nightclub, and so the world changed, and we're still here. What is it? It's literally, isn't it? It's 5 years since the first lockdown.
So what is it like now? A nightlife.
It's changed. Whereas people might have gone out every week now it will be they'll go out as a special occasion, like for for Jenny's birthday in 6 months or whatever. They'll plan a big night out.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's because of just
solely
how expensive everything
mainly
is?
It's because the cost of living, and people have just got out of the way of doing it. So even if things hadn't got more expensive, because obviously staying at home's cheaper than going out, it's a culture shock when you haven't done it so long to suddenly find out you've got to pay for a taxi, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. So I think especially the younger generation, and I mean, I read somewhere the other day that is it up to 40% of people between 18 and 25 don't even drink anymore. Things have changed. I mean, I remember going out into any city. I mean, I've worked up and down the country as well as abroad, and for not being able to see the pavement for people, and not just on a Friday and a Saturday, on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, and now you get 2 nights a week, and you don't always get that because people now they drink at home, they pre-drink.
But see, weddings have changed as well in the respect of people going or staying in the evening. It's almost half the amount of guests. So the average amount is 100 guests, they say at the moment. And what you find is after the buffet, a lot of them have gone home, or they've had enough. Or
do you
they
find
might have
people
one
are
drink.
like looking at their watches, thinking, is it when would it be rude to leave?
Yeah, and then don't get me wrong, they're not all like that.
No.
You have some absolute brilliant weddings. You think, oh my God, that was brilliant, but it's very much changed the way people just want to enjoy themselves and have a good time.
And I think, with the stress and strains and worries in life, I think more than ever we all should be
let your hair down. Yeah.
And I think whether it comes to a wedding or a nightclub that I do, we're in the same business, but we're not, if that makes sense. But we're still providing that service of letting people have a bit of escapism, whether it's a birthday, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a night in a nightclub. You go out, you forget about your worries, your problems. You go out with your friends, your family, your work colleagues. You get on the dance floor, let your hair down, dance to some classics, bring back some memories, and just it's like therapy, isn't it?
So if you could go back now, being how the nightlife is now, would you shut the doors on Rubik's and go back to the events and production and getting all the equipment again, or would you stay as you are? I mean, I know you're doing a little bit here and there with your DJing now, aren't you, and radio? But
yeah, I would never go back to buying loads of equipment and having that stress of having a massive infrastructure and equipment to maintain and to buy and staff to look after in that way. But I think you have to divert. It doesn't matter what business you're in now. You have to diversify, which is why with Rubik's, it's going all right. We're doing well. And
you're surviving
if I'd never known what I knew before COVID, I'd be more than happy. And people come out and they still have a great time. But we've had to diversify a little bit with the music that we play. We've had to change sometimes on a Friday. The music gets a little bit more modern and stuff. So we've had to. Everyone in every business. I think it doesn't matter what job you do, it's been affected, and the way that you operate your business has had to have changed between before COVID
and adapt
and now. And I think it's the same with weddings. I think it's the same with everything. People have only got a certain amount of money to spend, and they have to prioritise, which is, I think, the great thing about a wedding is people know. Do you know what they might think? Well, you know what, I can't afford a mortgage at the moment. Don't get out. Haven't had a holiday in ages, but we're getting married. This is a once in a lifetime thing. More than ever, I haven't seen. We never go out with my mates anymore. I haven't hardly ever see the family because they're over the other side of the country and they're bogged down with bills and problems and life. It's a chance to get everyone together, friends, family, work colleagues, people that you haven't seen in years, and get them all under one roof and have a good old party. And with the way the world is at the moment, do we not all need a little bit of wedding,
it's hard
DJ,
enough, isn't it?
Dancing, escapism and therapy.
Forget about everything else. Yeah, no, I agree.
Exactly. I think people can I think it is money well spent. I really do, because that's something you're going to remember forever.
So when you own, I mean, it almost comes into a nightclub. When you own an events, wedding business or a nightclub, do you think you get to a certain age where you just think, do you know what? That's it. I'm too old for this.
Shall I get my code?
I know we all get older.
Silver Fox.
But do you think, maybe DJing, for instance, do you get to a point where you go, oh, he's a bit too old for this game?
I think I've always said to my family and friends, you must say, if I'm over that old boy, that people are going, oh.
Have you got an age in your head where you think I'm hanging the headphones up?
I don't think I've got an actual age, but I've always said that, for instance, if I was doing discos at the moment, I would never want to go to an 18th birthday or 21st birthday party and they're like, who's this granddad just rocked up, and it's probably in the nightclubs as well. But I think with weddings, it's a little bit different. I think if you've got your big day and you've booked a DJ and he turns up and he maybe is a bit silver foxed, he is a bit old, but he's suited and booted, looks the part, and he's got the experience.
Yeah.
And he's got professionalism. I don't think many brides and grooms are going to be worried. No. I think, in fact, it almost gives you peace of mind. Doesn't it?
I've got this sort of in my head at the moment that I'm coming up to 37, so I've got a few more years.
Did you have a heavy paper round?
I've got quite a few more years till I have to retire, but I think with wedding DJs, maybe when you get to your 60s, I do not want to be doing someone's wedding at the age of 60, but you're thinking of retiring, but wouldn't it be better to have a business which maybe has a lot to it, so photo booths, dance floors, discos, a bit of everything, and then you can sell it to someone.
You could sell
rather
it.
than just go that I've just got me DJ rig. I'm packing up. I'm done.
You could sell it, or you could take on a different role, and you might not be DJ, but you might be running things from the office. You can pass on your knowledge, train DJs up. Train them up, give them the wisdom of all your years' experience, but you don't actually do the event yourself. You could take on a different role within the company, or like you said, you could sell it on.
I mean, they say that, don't they? That entrepreneurs and directors of business, they shouldn't be operating their business. They should be working from the top and looking at expanding and making it better.
The best if you're a good manager or business owner, the best ones are the ones that actually are sitting around doing very little.
Yeah, and have a massive team of people doing it for them.
The reason they're doing very little is because they've put the right people in the right places doing the right things.
Yeah.
And if you've managed to do that, good luck to you.
Yeah. But I do think in the events game it is a little different, especially when we're wedding personality DJs.
And I think people
do we come across a lot of.
And I think people want to, with a wedding, they want to know that they're just not a faceless name or a number. They are a person, and that they get to know you, and they know if they speak to you on the phone, which I think is so important. And we always used to say, if a DJ's booked for an event, it's very important that they ring up the client and talk to them on the phone.
Introduce themselves.
Because you need to know, you need to have that understanding and that confidence between the client and the customer that you both are singing from the same hymn sheet, and you're both going to turn up and both be what the other person needs you to be. And you've got to have that. It's an unofficial contract, isn't it? You've got to have that. You've got to have that understanding, and you've got to feel safe and secure that you know what you've booked is what you're going to get.
Is what you want. So, I mean, I've found it quite hard recently because we've just become VAT registered.
Oh dear, you've just said that word. The V word.
We all try and stay away from as much as you can, but it's, at the end of the day, we've gone over that threshold. We've got to go VAT registered. But I think especially in this game, and it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier, there's people who do it at weekends as a hobby. They might be cheaper. But when we're now VAT registered, sometimes you can outprice yourself out the market. You either swallow a bit of that VAT or you move it onto the client.
It's difficult as well. I think some people they don't understand the costs that are involved in doing what we do
on a bigger scale.
Some people totally get it, but some people still think, I'll put £150 aside to get all
for a DJ.
And you know what, that just wouldn't touch the sides, would it, of a professional DJ? But there's people out there that think, well, hang on, that's decent
DJ.
money. That
it's
DJ's
music.
It's so true. A DJ isn't just a DJ, but if the only way to prove that, if you think that, the only way to prove that is actually for you to book one of those. And I wouldn't want you to book someone who's just the cheapest going. It would only be at that point that you'd realise. That if you spent a little bit more,
you would have maybe got a little bit better.
I wouldn't want you to do that and ruin your event for me to prove your point.
So here's a question for you: running an events business or wedding business, do you think you can become a millionaire?
No,
I
way.
Definitely don't think.
No, I think you could be comfortably off.
Yeah, you can live a lovely life.
But you've got to work hard. But do you know what? You've got to care as well, because I think if you're doing weddings, people are going to see through you. If you're just doing it for the money and you're rocking up and you're watching your clock and you're trying to get away as quickly as possible, it's going to be obvious. You've got to be passionate and you've got to care. You've really got to care. Not just because of your reputation, but you've really got to care because you're a human being and you know it's an important day for someone. You've really got to care that you don't let them down.
So, I mean, that kind of it goes into my next question.
Oh, and don't eat the buffet unless you're invited.
We've had that.
We've had DJs who've gone in and they've tucked into the buffet uninvited before the guests. Oh. So if you're a wedding DJ, leave the buffet
alone. Oh, and do you know
put the vol au vents down?
Do you know one of my pet hates?
Yeah.
And still see it going to other people's weddings. Sitting on a chair behind the DJ booth.
If I ever saw a DJ in a night in one of my nightclubs or a disco, they were sitting on, unless they had a medical
issue. Yes, yeah. But no, sitting on a chair,
no,
DJing is not.
If you're sitting on a chair and you look like you're bored, then how can you expect your customers to have a good time if you can't even be bothered to get off your feet?
I mean, I know some DJs at the moment, they've even brought a little rubber mat. You can actually buy these little mats which are designed if you're standing for long periods of time in the same position. It's meant to be comfortable on your feet, so maybe I'll have to invest in one of them.
DJ slippers.
Yeah, mine will need a quite heavy weight sort of limit though.
No, I wasn't going to say.
No, I didn't think you were. So what advice would you give to someone who was looking at starting a wedding and events business?
I'd look at what you wanted to achieve, whether it was about the money, whether it was about the passion, or whether it was about making sure that your customer has the best day of their life. And it's about looking at what you wanted to achieve by going into that game. If anyone thinks, well, let me be a DJ, that beats getting a proper job. It's an easy route. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, being a successful DJ and having clients week in, week out, which you
full time,
you'll maybe get away with the odd event without any experience and not knowing what you're doing. But very soon, people see through you. If you don't know what you're doing and you're giving it all this, but you can't do it, you're not going to survive. So you've got to be passionate, and you've got to learn your trade. You've got to understand that you're not there for you. You're there for the customer. You might have some favourite songs. You might have been practicing mixing in your bedrooms for years on end. That doesn't make you a wedding DJ.
No. You've got to be out there.
I've had people that have wanted to audition at the nightclub, and they've sent me a CD of them just mixing. Well,
what does that mean?
That means nothing to me.
Especially in what kind of thing
I don't know what you. I need to hear you and see you play to a crowd and know what to play. I can walk into a room, and I'm sure you can as well, whether it's a nightclub or a party, and I can pretty much walk in, and I'd almost pretty much know by the time I'd walked from the door to the DJ booth what song is going to get them up dancing, because you just get the vibe quite quickly.
It's almost like the first few songs don't
But
you?
I've walked into other events and I've seen other DJs, and I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So
you get they're like that,
yes,
don't you?
in so many in any industry, there's good ones and there's bad ones.
Bad ones,
and.
So we get a lot of bride and grooms. This whole podcast is designed for people in the business and also bride and grooms looking for suppliers. So what would you give advice to a bride and groom looking for anything? So it could be a wedding DJ, decor company, caterers, whatever. Do you think is the most important thing they should do?
First of all, it's about recommendation and word of mouth. Or if you've been to a wedding, or if you've been to a party and you've had some great food, or if you had a great wedding cake and you want a great wedding cake, go to them and ask, where did you get your cake from? Same with the DJ. If you've been to a party and you've seen it firsthand, or if you know people that have got married, who did you use? What were they like? Always go for recommendation. Then virtually any decent website or decent company will have reviews, and don't so much go with the ones that are on their website, because they could just pull them from anywhere.
Yeah, it's got to be Google or Facebook, hasn't it?
Where they can't pick and choose which ones they put on there and who.
You need the legit ones.
And I'd say then when you decide on who you'd like to go with, meet them, talk to them, do whatever you feel you need to do, so that you've got that peace of mind that they are going to deliver what you need. And then when they tell you they're going to deliver what you need to have that feeling inside that they are going to deliver on the day. You need to have that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to do your research.
Definitely, I 100% agree. So all I want to say is thank you for joining me today. It's been a lovely little chat, reminiscing on the old days, and obviously, hearing about your experience, how you started.
It's been a pleasure, and it's great to see you sort of developing and moving on from all the things that you've done.
I've learned those from you, really.
And I'm not married yet, so I'm hoping.
So you'll be sitting on this table with your good lady.
I'm expecting more than a good deal.
I hope you've got deep pockets there. No, I'm only joking.
Well, after all I've done one for you. You wait till this camera stops running. And doesn't Lord Sugar want his boardroom back?
So just before you go,
Yeah.
please give just have a look at that camera right in front of you and give them a bit of a plug about your nightclub.
Okay, so we're in Colchester, Britain's oldest recorded town. We're in Crouch Street. It's now a city, and Crouch Street's right in the centre of the town. It's opposite the old Odeon Cinema. If you want a good night out, we're there every Friday and Saturday. And literally, whether you're 18 or 80, you'll always be made to feel welcome, because we're not a big chain. We're an independent company. I'm there 9 times out of 10 myself. My partner, Rebecca, she runs the bar, so it's a very family-run venue. Ross's wife works behind the bar quite regularly as well,
she does,
Charlene. You come and DJ there when you've got a night off. So
Yep.
it's very you get to see us there, and it's very personally run by myself, and I'm passionate about it. Like I said, I sold my house to do it, so it means everything to me, and I love people coming in and having a good time. So if you've got a party, a birthday, a work do, we do the 80s, the 90s, and a few cheeky new ones as well. It's a proper a way, I would say, to bring back the memories and create new ones.
Brilliant. Well, we wish you all the luck with that.
You're fired.
Thank you once again for coming in.
Pleasure.
So next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking to Hayley Golding, who is a professional wedding singer. So we'll have a chat with her next week. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.